Welcome back. In the prior video, I showed you what's going to happen when we do the register user. When a user goes to the register page, they're going to enter in their username, email, password. We're going to do our best to create a new user. Let me make it a little bit smaller so we can kind of read it. This is a new user create. So this little bit, this bit right here, not the switch statement, but these two statements will create a new user. And this code was going to create a new volunteer record. But we do have an issue between the two things, between the two operations. I don't want to just create a user account. The membership provider does a couple of things besides creating an account. You can create an account, which is the user table, and you can actually create or assign roles to the user. So I want the user to have a role, because later on down the road, if we want to build pages that are role based, in other words, a volunteer can get to this page or this function, but an admin can't, or vice versa, users have to be assigned roles. So when a user is first created, I'm going to create sort of a default role for that user and assign that default role to the user. So under the roles table, I created a bunch of different test roles, but there's two real roles here, admin and volunteer. I'm going to set the user to the volunteer role when the user ID is created. So how do I do that? After the user ID is created, I'm going to run a bit of code called roles, add user to role. The user is going to be the registered username, and the role is going to be volunteer. Simple. So when this line, literally, when this line of code runs, this will create an association between roles and users, and we'll create a new record in this table called user is in role. Users in role. Wow. And later on, I can after users authenticated, I can see if they're authorized to do a certain action. Now, I'm not a big fan of having hard-coded values here because this may change. So let's use a setting as well. If I go to the settings, I'm going to create a new setting. This is a key attribute value pair. So the setting I'm going to call is default vol role, and here I'm going to call volunteer. It's application scoped. It's a string data type. That's all I have to do. Down the road, if I want to, the settings all end up in the web config file. If we scroll down here and look long enough, I'll find default role. It's a string, and the value's volunteer. So let's see if I can plug that setting into that. Sorry about that. Lost my screen for a second. Add user to role. Again, it's going to be registration dot username. Of course, I'm sorry, register user dot username. Sorry about that. I lost my screen for a second. All right. So what we wanted to do was use the value that's in the app setting or the web config setting in here. And there's an easy way to doing it. First of all, there's a class called system.configuration, and that class has a couple of different methods we can use. It comes with what's called the configuration manager. Configuration manager dot app settings. I bet you it's not this, it's this. And it's not volunteer in quotes, it is, it's looking for default vol role. Let me take that back. Dot. Nope. It's. I'm so close. Let's see. In quotes. And this cast is a string. Okay, what doesn't it like? Let's take a look at the code I found. Let's see if we can steal that. Okay, that seems to work. And we're going to take this, minus the semicolon, put it there. That's what I had before, so something isn't quite right about this. Let's take a peek at it. Oh, okay. I must have had a period or a comma in the wrong place. So what this is going to do, my default role, is in my web config setting. The web config is not compiled code. It sits as a as a text file that can be edited by anybody. Well, edited by let's say app support. Um, if it's something you need to change on the fly, for instance, in other words, let's say that default role was going to be something else, it's much easier to make a web config setting than it is to dig through the code and find where that's at. And I could reference this everywhere. Think of this like um, it's public and available to everybody. So one of the things you don't want to put in web configs are passwords or certificate names, stuff like that, or certificate values. Let's see if it worked. I'm going to register a user. It's thinking, it's compiling. Okay, come on. Okay, we're going to go to register. New register is going to be, or new user is going to be test ABC at Verizon.net. New password, confirm password, register. Okay, so after I know that this part's going to work, so let me put a breakpoint here, and I run the breakpoint. So the new account's been built. The username is there. Default role is there. Add user to role. Okay, value cannot be null. Parameter name, role name. Okay, so role name is null, meaning that this is returning null. Interesting. Okay, so configuration manager app setting. Let's go out to here, and this is under application setting. Perhaps it's looking for. Let's take a look. Let's go back to this guy. Nope. App settings should be there. Let's go back out and say it's not finding this value. Configuration manager app setting default role. So it's not finding that. Is there an app setting tag? Well, yeah, that's where it's looking for it. I'm curious why application setting and app setting are different. All right, well I'll figure that out later, but let's for now I'm going to take this and throw it up to app setting and do that. The setting value I don't need anymore. I just need the add key. Let's see, add key equals. Let me take that back because I did. Okay, let's say add key. Okay. KD. And here we are again. So I threw it under the app setting. This is I couldn't find it under the application setting. This is troubling. So let's try it again. You can skip this guy. I'm not a fan of that because honestly, it's easier to handle these settings under that project settings. I'll figure out why it's not there. All right, test DEF. I have to change usernames because it did actually get created. Okay, here we are. Go back to my other breakpoint. Add to. Let's make sure that this works. So what I'm going to do is add a watch, and this will resolve it. So this guy is really volunteer, so I did pick it up the second time. Add user to role, step once. It's there. Now it's going to create the rest of the record and log me in. And I'm logged in. So now let's take a look at what actually happened back here. We'll go out to the user table and test ABC, I'm sorry, test DEF was this user ID. Let's go out to the users and roles table. It's there, and I'm assigned that role. Let's look at the roles table to make sure that the role is volunteer. Yep. So the user was built. He's in the users table. He's also in the volunteer table. Let's make sure that. Here's the user ID. I'm going to go out to volunteer table. He's there. He's everywhere. So in other words, I build him in volunteer. I build him as a user. I add him to that volunteer role. See, now he's logged in. I can look to see if he's in a role or not. And if he's in a role, I'm not going to show him certain things. I might not show him manage skills. Like he literally wouldn't even see this menu item if he's just a plain old volunteer. You notice I already adjusted the account menu items. Manage roles and manage users is only available if you're logged in. For instance, let's log off. Nobody's logged in after log off happens. Let me try that again. Okay, it took a second. I logged off. Nobody's logged in. I can log in. I forgot my password. I can register. I'm working on getting that menu item set, but I could register, log in. For the other thing, the other option wasn't there. The manage roles or users. I can log in. I'm still not authenticated. So the way I did this is in the login screen. Excuse me, in the site master. If I go to masters, site master. In the site master, I have code that says if the user is authenticated, then turn some menu items off. I'm probably going to clean this up a bit, but this is what turns off or on menu items depending on if the user is authenticated. Authorized is different. Authorized means he has or he doesn't have roles. And right now he does have the volunteer role. So the next bit is going to be securing pages and then securing controls based off of role. Great. Thanks a lot.